What's up, everybody? It's me, Jake. Anyway, I was just thinking to myself, and it's like Horace and Jasper. Oh, Horace, you've been thinking, on 101 Dalmatians. Everybody's like, what is he talking about? Pop culture reference. But anyway, it's just impractical knowledge. I'm just full of surprises. Surprise. you know. It's, but anyway, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what the hardest part of being alone is? And everybody's like, tell us. You're gonna tell us anyway. Is the fact that you're not supposed to be. And I'm like, hmm. but yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, like, the reason why I like keep like adult beverages, at my place, at my crib and all that. They're like, why? Because like, yeah, because I'm an alcoholic and I drink all the time. Like, no, but gives people a reason to come see me and hang out and visit me, because I'm not really a fun guy unless you're like liquored up, just like me. Is like for you know to be around. It's like you gotta get me. I've got to have like sugar in me, and get the sugar rush, and get a little buzz going. It's my version of buzz. But it's temporary. It's like that commercial, built to last or last. It's not. It's like that song, "Temporary Home." But yeah, that kind of gives me that boost of confidence. Like they say, liquid courage or whatever. It's like but yeah. So, anywho, just thought I'd share. Sharing is caring. For whoever needed to hear that, and they're like, Jake, what are you talking about? You're talking to yourself again. You know what I mean? Or who you talking to? Because I'm all like all by myself. Like the song. But it's like I'm not just talking myself though. Technically speaking, like, yeah, you are. It's just you there. You know what I mean? Nobody else is around for a mile, or well, not a mile, but you know what I'm saying, in the vicinity of me or whatever, where I'm at. You know what I mean? But actually, there is like it's like I'm talking to Jesus. I'm talking to guys like they're always around. You know what I mean? Like in about I'll never leave you nor forsake you. I call it for Jake you. Because it's like for Jake you do this, you do that. You know what I mean? So it's like it's tough. As I think about my kids, future tense, and it's like what sucks is the fact that like I know what women want. You know what I mean? And it just sucks that it makes you feel not wanted. Like not being with somebody or ever really being with somebody is hard because it's like I try my best to put my best foot forward and like I don't smoke, drink, do drugs. I've never been to prison. Not that that's a bad thing or a deterrent or whatever. Don't have tattoos. Like I'm really intelligent. I write poetry. I can sing. You know, um, I know that I'd be like a good like parent or father or whatever, husband and stuff. Because it's like I'm a good brother and I'm a good uncle and I'm a good nephew and I'm a good son. So it's like I've got all the makings to, be those things too. But nobody gives me the chance, the opportunity. And it's like maybe it's because I'm so picky. Particular, it's because like I know what I want and I know what I deserve, and so it's like I don't want to settle. But at the same time, it's like you think I'm always local mind and basic thoughts. I'm always like, like I use the analogy of that if I was like at a bar or a club or something and pick somebody up, like a girl, you know what I mean, like a pickup line or whatever, and I go to approach them and I see him like talking to a guy, it's like an argument, and I don't know. I'm thinking the guy's doing the same thing I am, trying to like whether, like whatever, trying to date her, see if she'd go out with him or whatnot. And it's like, I've never been on a date, so I was like, I wouldn't know. So it's like me with giving advice for people that are parents and don't have kids, or marriage advice, and I've never been married or divorced, or whatever. So it's like, people act like, it's just like the analogy of like, I don't have to be an alcoholic to know like what that might, be like or whatever, even if I have no 0% like experience with it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I also don't know what death feels like or whatever, but it doesn't mean I gotta like, to find out or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's like, um, so it's like tough, like tough acting to acting, but it just, I don't know. It's like they say, it's lonely at the top. If you're like at the top of Mount Everest or whatever, and whatever you're looking out, or like I used the other note is like Bruce Wayne Enterprise. You got that $1 million mansion, but nobody to share it with. It doesn't mean, it means nothing. You know what I mean? Or like that guy on Moana. What's his name? His name is Maui, and he's got this like hook, and like basically he tells her, because it ends up getting like damaged or broken or whatever, and he's like, without my hook, I am nothing, or I am no one, or whatever. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like that too, or it's like I use analogy as like, why little kids say, where they're like monster, because they can't say creature, you know what I mean, like creature feature, like Kratz creature. So, but yeah, it's like sucks to suck, second place is first loser, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not a loser. It feels like I'm a loser at a winning game, a game of life, you know what I mean? Day of rest, day of stress, But it's like my mom always says, if someone can handle you at your, like your the worst thing about you or whatever, um, they got the relationship down packed or whatever. So it's like, well, what are my worst things about me? It's like I could give you a laundry of things, you know what I mean? I always joke around and be like, yeah, my friends and family, they teach me what not to do in life. You learn from their experience or their, mistakes and whatever, so you don't have to be like history and I have one thing in common. We repeat ourselves, you know what I mean? But yeah, so, I mean, I would say my worst things about me would probably just be that, like, I bite my nails, like, or, like it's not necessarily like my fault, but like, I have like teeth, like, they're all shifted and, I don't have all of the teeth that I had, like when I was like half my age or whatever, almost 36. And I tell people that too. It's like, if you're 18 and get out of high school, and you have a kid versus waiting almost 2 decades and then trying to do the same thing, because when you're a kid just getting out of high school, it's going to end up where the grandparents like watch the child because, you don't have anything set up. You don't have a credit score. You don't have like really money saved in the bank. None of that stuff. You know what I mean? But once you put your like career and whatever, like kind of thing and get that established and whatnot, you have money to where you could put your kids through private school or like go on vacations and, all those kind of things. And it's like, so I'm not necessarily being like narcissistic or like selfish. I'm selfish in the sense of like, I think about those things. You know what I mean? I don't want to be hashtag that guy. You know what I mean? Where it's like the horror stories or like, like sometimes I'll walk into a room, I haven't even done anything. And yet people are like, oh my God, it's Django. Oh my God, he's so annoying. He talks all the time, or blah, 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 stuff like that. And it's like the ladies in the coffee shop analogy, like the Flavor Flav dude says with the little chain, around his necklace of a clock. And he's like, if it don't apply, let it fly, because why should what those women in the coffee shop, they don't know your struggle or weekly grind or daily or whatever. Like don't let them like dull your shine. Why should what they say matter to you? You know what I mean? In one ear and out the other kind of thing. Um, so it just puts things into perspective, like Dr. James Dobson, Focus on the Family, but it's just about focus, like what drives you, what motivates, what inspires you, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, um, that's always been like that song, You're the Reason for My Life, You're the Inspiration, and I know, like I always think of like I say, I'm a writer, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And so it's like I've got certain titles that unpublished haven't been finished. You know what I mean? Things in the workings or whatever, in the works or whatever, where it's like, you could see forever in their eyes. You know what I mean? And women, they lose their mind. They get lost in the sauce. Like put a spell on you, like bewitched, be watching you. Like that show Jeepers Creepers or whatever. But yeah, it just, I guess having like knowledge is power, but it's all about how you apply it. You can have all the knowledge in the world, be like the world's greatest English teacher, but if you're lost on a desert island or whatever, like, and have no students, that knowledge means nothing. You know what I mean? Or like having a really nice car or a nice house. It's like, but you can't take the stuff with you when you go. So it's like, whoa, then what? It's like, what you gonna do, brother? Like Hulk Hogan, Um, yeah, so it's like slap it to a Slim Jim, get ready. Yeah, it's like it just, things on my mind, that I never really like expressed too much, you know what I mean? Like what's in my, like women always say, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? You know what I mean? They're like, nothing, and they're like, what? But like what's like in my heart or like in my spirit animal, heart chakra or whatever, like, and of course, so like I say, getting back to it with the whole dating analogy is like, because I've got the like bald hairline, bald fade or whatever they call it, receding hairline. I call it like partial baldness. And I would be like, to the ladies, I'd be like, yeah, it's her loss and your or whatever, and my Rogaine or or whatever, just stupid stuff. Because you get them to laugh, you get a chance. Comedy is, the laughter is like the medicine or whatever, something like that, the best medicine or whatever. So I, like I say, I would see a girl, or a lady or a woman or female, at the bar, and like before I go to approach her, on the approach, like to go to talk to her, and then someone like hits intercepts it, or goes and talks to her first before me. So it's like you're kind of being patient and waiting in line and whatever, and manners and etiquette and respect and whatever. And you think to yourself, you start getting in your head about stuff, just like women do, and they get lost in the sauce, you know what I mean? And they start like beating themselves up about things, that's out of their control, and they feel like out of order or whatever. And so, like I'll like think like I'll see like he might have like a really nice like watch or like jewelry or something, or I know that he had a really cool looking car like parked outside at the place or whatever. And so I'm like, yeah, she's probably better off with him anyways, or better off without me, like that song, I'm here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. And so I kind of, because I know women have a fear of rejection. It's like me with like a fear of failure, but so it might be even a fear of success. You get too successful and get too like good at stuff, and then you get the haters and the trolls and whatever, you know what I mean, kind of thing, to try to bring you down. You know what I mean? And like they say, higher levels, higher devils, and then people have these unrealistic expectations of you, or like I call it, like sometimes people, I call it like a inaccurate statement, where people think certain things about me, and it's not true. They assume or they presume how I feel, or they're projecting on me about things that they have their own inner insecurities and inner demons or whatever that they're like working on. It sounds like a you problem, not a me problem, or like that's Like when people was like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" It's like, "What are we gonna do? What are you gonna do? You did this. Like you gotta, you made your bed. You gotta lie in it. And so, or they call them your problems. Instead of my problems. That's why they're called yours. Or whatever. But God loves a cheerful giver, and you know what I mean. Turn the other cheek, and like a good deed deserves another. Do the good deed of the day or something. Whatnot. Um, and so it's like knowing that it kind of, it's troublesome for me because it's like I know like the like what I should be doing and then what I end up doing is kind of like I'm a walking talking contradiction, like a conundrum, like a catch 22, because I know like right and wrong, good and bad and all that stuff, but after a while you kind of like give up faith or hope, Obi-Wan. You know what I mean? It's like it kind of gives you like, what's the biggest dream killer? Hashtag doubt. So it's like for me, um, that's kind of where it's at, where it's like it hasn't happened so far. What makes me, or anything else, or the track record history report that anything's going to be different or change, or you know what I mean, kind of thing. And so why even put in the effort or whatever? Because at the end, I could be with someone for like 5 years, like half a decade or whatever. And if they don't end up wanting to be with me, or they don't want to, like have kids or whatever, then it's like that Carly Simon song, "You're So Vain," like you do put all this work into eggs in one basket and effort, and then it just falls through. It just doesn't work out. So like for me, it's kind of like I'm not even going to put myself in that situation because, fear, like I say, like being hurt, because you're scared, it's like, they'll take the leap of faith and take the plunge or whatever, you know what I mean? Um, but it's like, you want someone to meet you halfway or meet you in the middle. You don't want to be, it's like a kiss, like 80-20. You don't want to be leaning in so much and they only go a little bit of the way, or turn and give you like a peck on the cheek or whatever. It's kind of like The Bachelor, where it's like the pity rose or whatever, you know what I mean? Um, and you don't want to play like the victim card, but at the same time, it's like, there's been plenty of things in my life in the past and whatever that shaped and molded in me of who I am. And it's like scar tissue, you know what I mean? Where it's like, as long as you don't, think about it, it doesn't exist. You could just like etch a sketch, erase it out of your mind, but that's just not the reality. You know what I mean? Like even if the event isn't happening anymore, the memory's still there and it like haunts you. You know what I mean? Like that show, A Haunting. But yeah, so it's like I'm kind of like thinking like, obviously with age, if like the woman, that I end up being with is around my age, I'm about to be 36, like, the clock's more ticking for her than it is me, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm also middle aged, it's like a midlife crisis or midlife like crisis, like boo-hoo, you know what I mean? For like retirement age and stuff. And so, most women, they, 10, especially like 15 years younger than me, they're like, just old enough to drink and whatever. And it's like, that's when I wrote like first poem, a good poem I ever wrote in my life, like when I was like 13 years old, called The Dream Girl. And then like, that was how I thought as a kid and, as a boy. And then whenever I became a man, I called it My Long Lost Love, so it's like, I've wrote all these poems. It's kind of like those YouTube videos where the people give all these things to their potential person before they like tie the knot or like get married and whatever, for like their honeymoon or what, the reception or something. And it's like a collection, like a collage of like their life's work, or you know what I mean? And so, most women don't get that. Or I thought one day to myself, like a lot of women listen to these guys singing on like the radio or songs or whatever, and they fall asleep to that person singing to them because they've never had a man be able to like to do that for them, and it kind of made me feel bad because it's like a poor thing, like, oh, hurts your heart, so you know what I mean, like that's on my heart can't tell, because it's like even if you can get over them, sometimes they can't get over you, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it's always two sides. There's always two sides to every coin, unless like on the Batman where it's like Two Face, he's flipping a coin and it's like heads on both sides or whatever. You know what I mean? And some people are like that, where they're one way in front of you, but behind your back they'll like talk crap or whatever, talk smack, and it's just it's tough, man. Like it's not easy, and it's like a lot of women, they would actually grow a lot of like respect for me because they're like, oh, because I'm like old school. I'm like trying to save myself for marriage and like do the right thing, by the books and stuff. And a big word for women is like trust. It's like Aladdin says to Jasmine, he's like, "Do you trust me?" And it's like when they don't, and it's like, ooh, and you feel it in your heart, you're like, ugh, like you don't trust me, and you got to take a step back, you know what I mean, and then kind of diagnose it, you know what I mean. And I do a lot of like self-diagnosis, it's kind of like a hypochondriac where someone sneezes on them and they're like, oh my god, I've got something or whatever, coming down with a cold or something or allergies or whatever, so I'm trying to do that a little bit less. It's a whip, it's a work in progress, but what I can tell you, what I do know is that, like, because, like, God's given me visions and signs and dreams and stuff, and I want to turn that, like, dream of what he's shown me into fruition, into reality, like manifestation, you know what I mean? Like, I think I can, like the little engine that could, and I feel like I'm a little engine that could not, you know what I mean? So it's like, and then people are like, oh, like, Jake, don't feel like that, and I also thought to myself, this old deal, and it kind of gets you up in the fields, hashtag all the fields, it's like I go high, the God's queen, spear fingers or lady fingers, but, and I do that, and I probably really shouldn't, because it's like, deceive, it's like trickery, you know what I mean, like, because then women, I always tell them like, oh yeah, because if whatever, like you'd fall in love with me or whatever kind of thing, it like sounds like arrogant or cocky or whatever, like I'm full of myself, you know. Um, but so if someone said that to like my sister, oh, you're full of yourself, they'd be like, think of it as a compliment, like thank you, because like her name's Joy, is like, oh, joyful, full of joy, so they say you're full of yourself, you know what I mean? She literally is, or whatever, like ha ha ha, can't use that one on me, it's like you thought, and make them look silly, you know what I mean? It's like that song, like it's silly, it's like hey, or whatever, still got it. But yeah, it's like, hello, Chloe, you know what I mean? Or that one movie on Netflix called Boy Bye, and it's more like, girl, hello, like, hello, Clarice, or use my strong hand, or whatever. But anywho, it's a defense mechanism. It's like a shield, like the John Cena or whatever. It's like, I'm a robot. I show no emotion, and that's why. That's it's like it's touchy stuff. You know what I mean? What do they call it? PTSD or CPTSD. You know what I mean? Trauma. It's like baby mama drama causes trauma. Or whatever. But it's a poem I made about like my dad, and it's called Emotion. And so it's like saying the word emotion gets you, gets me emotional, or saying the word, broken, makes you feel broken, inside, it hurts, it's like hurts so good. You try to distract yourself from, like going into the unknown. It's like, show yourself. And so, when I was a kid, we're talking almost like, well, if I was
say, yeah, 7 is like 28 some years ago. We're talking 80% of my life ago, 4/5, if you want to use fractions. Told you I was smart. You know, I ended up, they told, cancer, cancer survivor, whatever. And so as a kid, I thought, if I could beat Nintendo, I could beat cancer. And that's exactly what I did, put my mind to it, mind over matter, they don't mind, so it don't matter, or whatever, you know. And so, like, in my head, to like, because I didn't understand what was going on, I was like, innocent, just a little kid, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know what I mean? So I, would, well, go into like character, it's like, pleased to meet you, I'm Cedric, the other entertainer, you know what I mean? I go in entertainer mode, because it's like, or like that Shania Twain song, that don't impress me much. Oh, 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 do you think you're cool, but have you got the touch, or whatever. But did that kind of like Jeff Dunham. I'm sure he probably tells his therapist all the time, like, like it's great being like Ahmed the dead terrorist or Walter, or, even Peanut or whatever. But he'd probably tell him, like, why can't I just be Jeff? Why can't I just be myself? Why can't that just be enough? Just me. You know what I mean? Why do I always have to be all these other personalities or whatever, all these characters or whatnot? You know what I mean? So as a coping strategy mechanism, like I say, as like a way of escape, because when stuff gets too tough for me, I run a fleet, you know what I mean? So, because I can't take it. There's a pressure, you know what I mean? Like that song, the pain is just too real. There's just so much that time cannot erase. It's called, what is that song? All of Me or whatever by Evanescence or something like that. But, anyways, so to escape reality and go to like a dreamscape or dreamland Kirby, I would, like I say, go like, character. So what do kids do when they're that age? They're like Elmo and stuff. So Elmo, how, and stuff like that. So when you lose control, you gotta grasp onto something, and that's all I knew. So I dove into it, and I started like mimicking, like puppeteer, like I started mirroring. That's what they call it in the psych world or whatever. It made me look crazy, like lost my mind or marbles or scruples or whatever. And it's painful, like triggered. Like has to instantly triggered. She's angry, but so I use that as like, because I wasn't hurting nobody, and or if I would get angry, I didn't want to hurt nobody, so I would, go off in the other room and cry or whatever. I'd like have a conversation in the mirror about the way I wanted a conversation to go with somebody or a group of people or whatever, and like practice, because that's what they tell you in school, and so it's like kind of like being in the military, you know what I mean? And so it's just like you're a weapon, you know what I mean? Like it says in the Bible, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And so it's like, greater is he that's in me than he is in the world. I could quote scripture all day, you know what I mean? But it's like, I don't know exactly per se where it's at in the Bible, but it makes me feel inferior, like an inferiority complex or whatever, because I can recite Disney, movie lines word for word verbatim of the old school good ones, you know what I mean? But I can't quote scripture, or, it's like, I can, it hurt, it sucks, you know what I mean? Because like, where's the disconnect? You know what I mean? Or like the word disconnection or hashtag disconnection. When you talk to women, you want them to feel included. You know what I mean? You don't want to isolate, because that's what I think is like, you gotta get them away from the group or whatever, like Isotope or Ion or whatever, because I'm good one-on-one, but like in a group setting or whatever, with the groupies, it's tough, because then it's like, I already know that their friends are like talking crap, or why is he pulling her and not us, and they're jealous, you know what I mean? Because women, like, that's just how they are, and they hate, like, they don't like being told no, and you know what I mean, like the truth. It's like I'm really a transparent person. It's like open book. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. I'll just say ain't no sugar in my tank or whatever. But like I say, I would go into doing that. So like, um, I did it as a way to um make people happy, because it's like I just want people to be happy. I just want, like be fun, because like I just want people to like me. You know what I mean? And so I would get in my head about it, like, well, why don't they like me? And so I think the opposite of something, because I'm smart. So like my parents, married 30 something plus years, you know what I mean? And I thought, like, okay, so with people that come from like broken homes, you know what I mean, divorce or whatever, separation, and it's like they got to choose which parent's your favorite, live with this one, and that's not cool when they're real young like that. But anyways, not to get distracted, you know what I mean, or a random tangent, but I know what that looks like, and so if I think the opposite of that, and I'm like, oh, you poor thing, man, that's awful, that's terrible, you know what I mean? Because I can envision it in my mind's eye. When you close your eyes, nobody's there. It's just you. It's like a blank canvas, and you draw. You know what I mean? So you could create your own world, your own reality, just like people that game and stuff, and those are their real family, their real true friends, because those people are always there when they need them. They're like, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like I say, getting back to it, I would do these things, these mannerisms or whatever, because it was a way for me to have that power and that control and take back control, like on Jurassic Park, and, would you please shut down the system? And she's like, I felt overwhelmed. He's like, when we have control. And she's like, I felt, or you never had control. That's the illusion. She's like, I was overwhelmed by the power of this place, but I took advantage of that power, and it's out now. You know what I mean? It's just like the word like outlook or look out, like on Jurassic Park down, where they get chased by the Tyrannosaurus, or outreach and reach out. Like God, he's reaching out to you, and a lot of people, they turn their back on him. Like they say, turn away from sin and be faithful to the gospel. It's like people let all these, personality or whatever, character or whatever, whatnot into their homes, but they don't invite God in, or God's not center focus into their world, like in America. Well, that's why I didn't maybe in divorce, because they didn't put him first place, because God's supposed to be uno numero, number one. You know what I mean? Like, and he shall not be mocked and whatever, you know what I mean? Um, so that's where a lot of people lose, you know what I mean, and don't exactly win, and you know what I mean? Because you could be a person that's like really poor, or homeless, or on the streets or whatever, and maybe make it to heaven. And then on the flipped aspect, you could have all the money, like a super rich person like Bill Gates or whatever, and you end up going to, not that he would go there, but I'm just saying as the example that you might be rich on earth, but because what you bind on earth, you bind in heaven. So it's like you might be rich in whatever in the earth realm, in the spiritual and the supernatural, you're nobody. It's like God, like where he says, don't be a wishy-washy Christian or lukewarm, or he'll spew you out of his mouth, like your yea be yea and your nay be nay, because, your tongue, life and death is chosen in the tongue, choose life that your days may be many in heaven, and so a lot of people, they're just lost souls, like ghosts, you know what I mean? And they're trying to cross over or pass over, you know what I mean? I think of it as like Star Trek, the next generation. You got to teach the next, whatever. They're not going to know what's what. So a lot of people that are like of certain descent or whatever, like Native American, they don't know the language and like the customs and traditions and all that. And it's unfortunate, it's sad. It sucks. Um, but yeah, so like I say, I would go and, um, remember these things, because it would make people that were struggling and suffering like me, you know what I mean? Like, it'd give them hope and inspiration, and it'd be like that, even in the darkest of the dark, there still is light. So I'd be like that lighthouse, like shining, like my beacon, like a beacon of hope, and like a symbol, like that was my, what do you call it, my testimony or whatever, you know. And it's like that became like my identity, you know. It's like I don't know, as as like, you know, the class guy here or whatever. I mean, like on the mock elections, like in high school, I got like the for the guys, I got most talkative. And then this one girl in high school, she was the most talkative for the ladies or whatever. And I'm like, she talks way more than me. Yeah, that's a fact. You could quote me on that, you know. And but yeah, you know, so anywho, just thought I'd put that out there. You know what I mean? It's like now you know. But yeah. So and then like I say, I would like also with football, I know all these like stats and like coach the players and whatever, and it's like, but I don't know the characters like in the Bible. But like I like football is life. Like my cousin said, Fortnite is life. You know, and like but so that's kind of where it's at for me at this point. Is like it's like the purpose driven life. It's like I just we're called to serve, not be served. You know what I mean? Um, but or like mighty chocolatey, mighty reason, and there's a reason for the season. You know what I mean? And you just gotta kind of turn the frown the other way around and put a smile on. You know, like it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot better. You know, but if you're not willing to make those adjustments and that sacrifice and whatever, because it's like when people get married, you're not necessarily going to have like two people that are like both like say models of the guy and the girl or the male and the female or whatever in the dynamic, and they're like, you know, both for the finance and all that kind of stuff like the same, you know what I mean. Somebody is like lower in this or one or they put him on a pedestal or whatever and that kind of thing. Like one of y'all in the relationship is like the more superior, the dominant submissive or whatever kind of thing. You know what I mean? And it's not really about that. Like I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, you know, like the traditional or conservative or whatever, like, oh he's like a what do they call it? Not a narcissistic sociopath, but a wi- someone that like thinks that way. They tend to be like not brash and hard. What's the terminology for it? Where when you are not a traditionalist, it's kind of like that, but like I say, that's getting more into the like the whole political view or worldly view or societal view or whatever. And you know, like it's not really some like they say you don't really talk about some of those kind of things, just like, you know, religion or whatever, in like school or work or whatever, you know. Um, it's like a hot topic, you know what I mean? And not the place like the store that girls like to go to or whatever, like the teeny boppers, you know what I mean? Um, but it's just chauvinistic practices. That's what I was trying to think of earlier, you know, and that sort of thing, you know, where it's a certain mindset or viewpoint or point of view. You know what I mean? And it's like the point of view is, you know what I mean? Get your finger out of my face, you know, it's like Iris said or whatever. You know, but that's kind of like where people draw a line in the sand, you know, where they got this like what do you call it? Like a list or whatever where it's like, oh, check and tick all these boxes or whatever. And like for me, for the sake of the argument, we'll just say hypothetically speaking, you know, or figuratively speaking, you know, because if I was to think that, oh, whenever I get married, my wife, she's going to have like blonde hair and blue eyes, right? That's what I thought prior to when I did get married or whatever. And then once I was married, she ended up having like brown hair and green eyes. You know what I mean? Like, if you have this like idealistic ideology or this narrative in your, excuse me, in your like spirit, your soul or whatever, of like, this is like the unshakable breakables for me, or deal breaker, or rule breakers, or whatever, like kind of thing, you're gonna stay so like alone forever. You might as well join the like nunnery, or like be a Buddhist priest or a monk or something. You know what I mean? Because you're like high strung standards and unrealistic expectations, like they're just, it's gonna get you to nowhere. You know what I mean? Like at some point, you've got to take some sort of like ownership and responsibility for what you do. You know, action, reaction. Like everything has consequences. You know what I mean? And there's a time and place. You know, and so like many women, think that it's like if they, get pregnant or whatever, like that. It's like that one song. It falls on me. It falls on me. And all, that you do, or whatever. I forget all the lyrics, but it's a song called Falls on Me by, I can't think of the artist off the top of my head, but it's like a song from like the 90s or something like that. But yeah, by Fuel or something maybe, or whatnot. But yeah, like it's just, you've got to have the courage, and then like take the time to get to know somebody. You know what I mean? Like I thought this one time, it's like there's certain parts about me that people that have known me my whole life still to this day don't know. Maybe they'll die not knowing, or I will, or whatever, never get to tell them. You know what I mean? Um, and I think of that too, your mortality and like death and whatever. It's like a phobia and fear of many people, you know what I mean? And when you bare your soul to someone, the catch is if you divorce them, like they can, it's like a loaded gun where they can use that against you. You know what I mean? That's why so many people, they don't trust because they just, that's a big word for like for women, especially because they're like, like they give you that part of them, and you don't reciprocate the love or whatever, or they feel like they're putting more into the than you are. You know what I mean? It's like the grass ain't always greener where on the other side. It's green where you water it. You know, um, but I know that's a lot of like metaphors, analogies, whatever that sort of thing. But just to bring things full circle, like it's just like that. It's like um, opposites attract. Sometimes they repel. But like it's kind of like that John Legend song. All of me loves all of you. You know what I mean? And it's like if you, nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? And you've got to kind of make peace with that. Is that you're not gonna get every single thing you ask for. It's like Santa Claus and like a Christmas list or a wish list. You're not gonna have everything of your heart's desire, for the rest of your life, like it's some fantasy or some kind of thing like they show on like rom-coms or on reality TV and stuff. Like they're paid actors, there's a script. You know what I mean? Just like for me, it's like practicing and doing all that stuff made it to where you can't, like for actors you can emulate and imitate things, but you're basing it off of your own experience or life experience or other people's experiences. So it's like it might be, it's like, like I say, a robot show no emotion. It's like one time I was told that I like, hashtag like fake cry, and it's like, no, like why? Who would do that? Like maybe if they're trying to gain something, temporary monetary gain, but like what profit is the man gain the whole world, lose his own soul? It's like it's not, I don't have to like pull like a nose hair or whatever to get me to like cry or put those like eye drops into my eyes or whatever. all you got to do, it's really easy and simple when you think about it, is you just think of the most messed up stuff that could ever happen possible, like worst case scenario. But I always have like best case, like I always go into situations with like the mindset of like worst case scenario, but I always have the best like outcome expectations or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And that's why a lot of stuff doesn't work out for me, because it's like I go into it having a agenda, or like whatever, it's just like a tactical advantage in war, where like you've got the upper hand, and it's like you don't want to be put in a position or in a bind or catch 22 conundrum where you're caught unaware, off guard, or in the unknown or unbeknownst to you, and look a fool and be embarrassed and publicly humiliated, you know what I mean? Like egg on your face or whatever, get thrown under the bus or whatever, So it's like when you get put into the fire, pressure builds diamonds, but it's like you also can crack under the pressure, you know what I mean? Like an egg. So, like, I guess for me, what I'm trying to say is that you've got to be you're not in charge of other people's happiness. You've got to be happy and with yourself, about yourself. You know what I mean? Happiness, true happiness internally, comes from within. You know what I mean? And so, like I say, with the whole crying narrative, is that like if you do that and you think of like these memories or like these things you saw in like books and movies and stuff, it's not hard when you have a lot of inspiration and muses to draw off of, like the well of infinite, endless realm of possibilities. You know what I mean? So you start like dwelling on that, and then you like it's like absorption. It's like a sponge, and it fills up with water. But what happens when it gets full? It's got to get wringed out. You know what I mean? And that's what's like transference. It's like the transfer of energy from one thing to another, particles of matter and stuff. So that's kind of a big deal, is like you've got to make sure to like um it's kind of like toxic, like negative energy, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to get that transferred onto you, and you also don't want to transfer it to somebody else, you know what I mean? Because we're all vessels, you know what I mean? You got to keep your temple pure, you know what I mean? Abstain from like sin, and like sexual impurity and immorality and whatever. And it's like the word impure, hashtag I'm pure, you know what I mean? It's like the lie detector determined you a lie, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But that's another thing, is like a lot of people, like for body count, slut shaming or whatever, like that's a big deal. Like a lot of people think, oh, that's childish, you know what I mean? Like, Jake, you got to grow up at some point, you know what I mean? It's like I'm a little teenage boy trapped in a man's body or whatever, because I'm like a kid at heart, like a little teddy bear, you know what I mean? It's like build a bear, build a boo, like the dream houses, dream wife, white picket fence, the whole 9 yards, the whole kit and caboodle and whatever. But it's like it's not always sunshines and rainbows. It's like they say, if it's in butts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a very merry Christmas. And so you've got to kind of, it's just like the thing with Beauty and the Beast, where the one lady that's the enchantress or whatever, she looks like this old beggar woman with her Hagrid or whatever, like Hagrid or shout out, but all the nerd geek, nerd alert, you know what I mean? Aruga, hubba hubba, like baby. But no, like seriously though, it's like, if you want something done to do it yourself, you've got to create the mood, like with little lobster, from Little Mermaid, with not Flounder, Sebastian, the sea crab or whatever, But yeah, and then he's like, Ariel, are you okay? You know what I mean? And sometimes people aren't, you know what I mean? It's like scabs or scar tissue, like it's too painful, pride always comes before a fall. And so it's like ripping the band, and sometimes you gotta let stuff go, and you've got to move on. And a lot of people, they just don't know how. It's just like a miscommunication or misinterpretation, where it's like you say something, and that's the thing, like tone, right? So like if you're texting someone, they have to give you the benefit of the doubt or benefit of the shout is what I call it. You make me want, So like for example, if someone was like, that is crazy versus you're crazy, they go like that, the woman's gonna be offended. She'll be like, "Ugh," and like cross her arms or whatever, like, you know what I mean? You're dismissed, like, you know what I mean? Because they think sometimes like you're beneath them or you bore me, like royalty, like be gone, little cretin, peasant or whatever. I have, bigger issues and fish to fry. I've got more important things to do with my time, and worry about you or whatever, kind of thing. So it's like, how do you think that makes them feel? And they internalize that, especially as a little kid, growing up and you're learning all these things. And I didn't get to have some of that stuff because I'm always like in a hospital. And so social interactions give you like social anxiety and whatever, because I didn't, like nonverbal communication. I never got some of those social cues 101 or whatever because so I'll sometimes follow people like a lost puppy or whatever until they like snap on me and then they're like, "What do you want?" And I'm just like, "I'm sorry," and just like leave and just like awkward silence. You know what I mean? Because it's like that build up, and like I say, negative and toxic energy or whatever. It's kind of like the venom, we are venom, I am Groot, and it's like the constant battle, like the like demon on the shoulder and like the angel or whatever, it's like which one you gonna pick? You gotta decide and choose and do it right now. And it's like the same deal with like kids where it's like this show called The List, like on Netflix, or like that show on Netflix where it's called Boy Bye, and whatever. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But like these are things that you have to like deal with and work on. And if you just like put it to, but you never like get closure or get peace of mind or get like resolve, you have a lot of unresolved conflict and a lot of unresolved like things in your life that when it comes to the surface and you don't know how to process it. It's like on the processing of your claim, and you can't rush the process. It's like, don't rush art, like that Toy Story dude, this little artist, with Woody putting the little thing over his shoe for the Andy thing. But yeah, so um you've got to deal with that stuff and see, like for me, it's like I don't have like some like my buddy used to say, I just bang, the ex old lady or whatever. It's like I don't have that way of like release the kraken, you know what I mean? And some people, they use that or whatever or other things like that, or they'll go and like jog, and it's like I have exercise induced asthma, so it's like that's not a stress reducer, that's a stress inducer instead of a stress reliever. Like that, gets me. It's kind of like when you go get off work and you're trying to decompress the string or the shocks and struts and the springs, and then people try to wind you up like a wind up doll. It's kind of like the shock therapy, where like they wind the little thing or like clear, you know what I mean? And that's not fair, where you don't really get a good nap or whatever, and you're constantly trying to be like everybody else's everything, be a people pleaser. You know what I mean? And it's a form of manipulation. It's like puppeteer who's calling the shots. You know what I mean? And just like people that are, excuse me, passive aggressive. I mean, it's like I'm quiet when I'm supposed to speak my truth, and then I'm like loud, and talking when I should be quiet. It's like the opposite. It's a spectrum. You know what I mean? It's like a give and take. And some people can't take it. They could dish the heat, but they can't take it. They got to get out of the kitchen. You know what I mean? So for me, it says like that song, if I told you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? And a lot of people do that. They'll learn things about you and then they'll like apply it, and like knowledge is power, but it's all about how you apply it. You know what I mean? And so they'll take those little secrets and like your deep dark secrets and like all your little scandals or whatever, like drama and whatever, and like they'll use that to better, like to make them feel superior or like they're better than you and you're beneath them, you're below them, or you don't measure up, like the limbo game with the little how low can you go under the little thing. And that's not fair. You know what I mean? It's not right, And so a lot of people, it's like they say, like in the Bible, it's like um, you receive not because you ask not, because it says, "Ask and ye shall receive." Thus says the Lord. Or seek ye first the kingdom and all of its righteousness, or His righteousness, or whatever, and all these things shall be added unto you. Thus says the Lord. So it's like when you do that, all the other stuff's going to fall into place. It's all going to make sense. It's all going to come together. It's not your job to figure everything in the whole world out or whatever. Or when people are like, "Oh, I've asked everybody, blah," and it's like, have you though? Have you really exhausted all the resources before you came to me about needing this help? Whether it be like emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And most people haven't. They lie. It's like a white lie. It's like a fib. It's like a tall tale, like an Aesop fable. And it's like, family's supposed to be there to love and support you, not, or friends, not use and abuse. You know what I mean? And it's like the like I feel statements. It's like I feel blank when you blank. It's like I feel betrayed when you treat my kindness for weakness. And after a while, you run out of cheeks to turn or fucks to give. You know what I mean? And so it's like people can't sit there and harbor like unresentment or unresolved issues like that show, like not unsolved mysteries, or else thinking like Diagnosis Murder or whatever, Murder She Wrote or whatever. So a lot of that were like The Outer Limits and all these other 90s shows. But people like that, like dramas that have six spice of life, and you want a little change, and like, can I get a do-over? You know what I mean? Because you overdo it, you like me, I take something simple and I complicate it, story of my life, and so you've got to kind of take a step back and pause for the cause, and sometimes you just gotta, that's why God gave you 2 ears to listen, only one mouth to speak. So if you don't like give them, time to process it or respond like a first responder, like a year to trauma or whatever, like that's not fair. Like you got to walk a mile in somebody's shoes before you go and try to judge them. And that's what a big factor is. A lot of people think that, oh, if I tell the truth about how many people I've been with or like body count or those kind of things for a new relationship, they're gonna like have this preconceived notion that I'm like, or I sleep around or I'm promiscuous or, and that's like my prerogative or whatever. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And it's like, no, they're trying to find out what makes you, what makes you tick, like what, because some people it's like how do you give love and receive love? Like for me, I think how I give love is like acts of service, um, probably words of affirmation, and how mainly how I receive love has a physical touch. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of people, if I'm like talking and going on a rant and rave, you know what I mean? They'll like tap me on the shoulder or something. It stops the thought, and I'm like, dang it! And I have brain for it. I can't remember what I was trying to say or whatever. Stuff like that. Um, so like it's just like people have different love languages, and you just got to figure out like unlocking the door and the lock, like that I am the lock and I'm the key or whatever, like on that show. But you've got to try to like the yin and the yang, and like cause everything and balancing out, like kind of thing. Where the happy medium, you know what I mean? Where they it's easier for people in your past to like know the certain things that like get you all hot and bothered, like in the boom boom room or whatever, and like what doesn't and whatever. But people that don't have that now, you can't hold that against you. Like you can't get upset if this is your first interaction of that. You know what I'm saying? How were they gonna know? Were they a mind reader or something, like a magician, like Harry Houdini or something? Um, so that's a lot of it too. Is like people they don't give them enough time to really like it's like the breakdown of the breakdown, like an in-depth analysis, like a fine-tooth comb. They kind of have a certain thought before they really got to know the person. Just like for me, if like one of my siblings had a class before me and then the teacher has this thing in their mind that I'm going to be just like the other sibling was. And so there's that constant battle of like, I might be the different than the like opposite, and so whatever they thought with how that, sibling was, that I'm going to be the same way. And sometimes I'm not, and so it's not fair. It's not a good way of comparison, like the analogy or whatever. So, but anyway, that's all I got to say. Have a good one. Peace.